Imagine this. You've spent years studying English. You've memorized hundreds of grammar rules, learned thousands of words, maybe even passed a few English exams with flying colors. But then, the moment you need to speak, your mind goes completely blank. You freeze up, overthink every word, and struggle to say a single fluent sentence. Sound familiar?
Oh, John, I've seen this happen so many times. And it's heartbreaking because these learners know so much English. Yet when it's time to actually use it, they hesitate, second guess, or even avoid speaking altogether.
Right? And here's the crazy part. This isn't because they're bad at English. It's not because they don't know enough words or need to study more grammar. The real problem is that they've been learning English the wrong way.
Exactly. The traditional way of learning English, memorizing vocabulary lists, studying grammar rules, and filling in worksheets, makes you good at learning English, but not at using English in real conversations.
That's the key difference. Imagine learning how to swim by only reading about it, memorizing water safety rules, and watching videos of swimmers, but never actually getting into the pool. The moment you jump in, you panic because you haven't practiced moving in the water. That's what's happening with English learners.
That's such a great analogy. And the worst part? Many learners blame themselves. They think, maybe I'm just not good at languages, or I need to study harder. But really, it's not their fault. It's the way they were taught.
Exactly. But here's the good news. Today, we're going to change that. We're going to show you how to learn smarter, not harder, so you can actually think and speak in English naturally without hesitation, without translating, and without overthinking every sentence.
So if you've ever struggled with speaking fluently, stay with us. By the end of this episode, you'll have a new approach to learning English that will help you speak confidently and naturally. Let's get started.
All right, let's talk about something that's been holding English learners back for years, the idea that mastering grammar first will make you fluent.
Oh, John, this one is so frustrating. So many learners believe that if they just study more grammar rules, their speaking will magically become fluent. But the truth? It actually does the opposite.
Exactly. Let's bust this myth wide open. Have you ever met someone who knows all the grammar rules but still struggles to form a sentence? Or worse, someone who hesitates, stops mid-sentence, and corrects themselves over and over again?
Oh, all the time. And it's not their fault. They've been trained to believe that fluency means speaking perfectly, without mistakes. But guess what? That's not how native speakers talk.
Right. Native speakers make grammar mistakes all the time and they don't even notice. They care more about communication than perfection.
Exactly. And let's not forget, grammar-first learning puts you in analysis mode instead of speaking mode. Instead of focusing on expressing yourself, you're busy thinking, wait, is this past perfect or past simple? Should I use has been or had been? Meanwhile, the conversation is already moving on.
And that's where the real problem lies. When your brain is stuck analyzing grammar while you speak, your fluency suffers. It's like trying to drive a car while reading the instruction manual at the same time.
That's such a great analogy. Instead of focusing on where you're going, you're stuck overthinking every move. But here's the good news. There's a better way.
Exactly. Instead of memorizing grammar rules first, you should be focusing on exposure, listening, repeating, and using English in real situations. That's how babies learn a language, and it's how you should too.
So if you've been spending hours on grammar exercises but still struggle to speak confidently, don't worry. It's not you. It's the method, and we're about to show you a smarter way to learn.
Up next, we'll share how exposure-based learning can help you become fluent faster without getting stuck in grammar rules. All right, we've just debunked the grammar first myth, so now let's talk about what actually works. The SMART learning framework: listen, repeat, use.
Yes, this is the method that fluent speakers, especially those who learn English naturally, use to build confidence and fluency. And the best part? It's simple, practical, and you can start using it today.
So let's break it down. The SMART learning framework has 3 steps: listen, repeat, use. And if you follow this process, you'll train your brain to think and speak in English without hesitation.
Listen, the foundation of fluency.
The first step is simple: just listen. But not just any kind of listening, you need active listening.
Right. Passive listening, like having English on in the background, can help a little, but it won't make you fluent. Instead, You need to focus. Pay attention to pronunciation, rhythm, and how sentences flow.
Exactly. And here's a simple way to practice. Pick a short clip from a podcast, a YouTube video, or a TV show, just 30 to 60 seconds, and listen to it carefully. Notice the pauses, the sentence structures, and the way native speakers connect words.
And don't worry about understanding every single word. The goal here is to train your ears to recognize patterns in natural English conversations. Repeat. Sound more like a native speaker.
Step 2 is where the real magic happens, repeating what you hear. This is called the shadowing technique, and it's one of the best ways to improve pronunciation, speed, and confidence.
Yes. Here's how it works. You play a sentence from a native speaker and then repeat it exactly as they say it. Same pronunciation, same rhythm, same tone. If they say, "I gotta go," don't say, "I have got to go," copy it exactly.
Right, and don't worry if you don't get it perfect the first time. The key is to practice in short bursts. Repeat the sentence 3 to 5 times and move on.
And here's a bonus tip. Record yourself. Listen to how you sound compared to the native speaker. It's one of the fastest ways to hear where you need to improve.
Use Make English part of your daily life. Now comes the most important step, using what you've learned. If you don't actually speak English, you'll never become fluent, no matter how much you listen and repeat.
That's so true. You have to put yourself in situations where you must use English, whether it's talking to a friend, writing a journal, or even having a conversation with yourself.
And here's a super effective way to do this. Every time you learn a new word or phrase, use it in a sentence 3 times that day. If you hear that's a game changer, try using it when talking about something exciting.
Yes, you can even create thought chains. Instead of thinking in your native language, start forming sentences in English throughout your day. For example, while making coffee, say, "I'm making coffee. It smells great. I love the taste of coffee in the morning."
The more you use English in real life, the faster your brain will adapt and start thinking in English naturally. All right, now that you know the Smart Learning Framework, it's time to put it into action. Up next, we'll guide you through fluency drills and challenges to help you master this method.
The 1-minute storytelling challenge, training fluency under pressure.
All right, now it's time for the real test. We've talked about the Smart Learning Framework, listen, repeat, use. But how do you actually train your brain to think fast and speak fluently under pressure?
That's where the 1-minute storytelling challenge comes in. This is one of the best exercises to improve fluency, confidence, and quick thinking in English. What is the 1-minute storytelling challenge?
It's simple. You have exactly 60 seconds to tell a short story, explain an idea, or describe an event without pausing, translating, or overthinking.
Right. The goal is to train your brain to think in English and express ideas smoothly, even if your grammar or vocabulary isn't perfect.
This exercise forces you to keep speaking no matter what. No stopping, no long pauses. Just keep going. Why this challenge works.
You might be wondering, why just 1 minute? Well, research shows that when we're under a time constraint, our brains find creative ways to express ideas quickly. This is exactly what happens in real conversations.
Exactly. The biggest fluency blockers are overthinking and hesitation. But when you give yourself a strict time limit, you don't have time to worry about mistakes. You just speak.
And the more you practice, the faster and more natural your speech becomes. It's like a workout for your English brain.
How to do the 1-minute storytelling challenge. All right, let's break it down into 3 simple steps. 1. Pick a topic. Choose something simple and familiar, like a funny thing that happened last week. Describe your morning routine. A place you'd love to visit.
Set a timer for 60 seconds. Start speaking as soon as the timer begins. No pausing, no stopping, just keep going.
3. Keep talking, even if you struggle. If you don't know a word, explain it in a different way. Use filler words like, "let me think," or what I mean is, to keep the flow.
All right, John, let's give our listeners an example. Your topic is your last vacation. Ready? Go.
Okay. So last summer, I went to Italy with my friends. We visited Rome, and wow, it was incredible. The first day, we saw the Colosseum, and I was amazed at how huge it was. The food, oh, the pizza and pasta was delicious. One funny moment was when I tried to order in Italian and completely messed up. The waiter laughed, but it was all in good fun. Overall, it was one of my favorite trips ever.
That was great. Notice how John kept speaking even when he hesitated a little? That's the key. Don't stop.
All right, so you've listened to an English podcast episode. Maybe it's this one, maybe it's another one. But how do you make sure you really learn from it? How do you train your brain to think in English, not just listen passively?
That's where summarizing comes in. Summarizing a podcast in your own words is one of the most effective ways to boost comprehension, improve fluency, and strengthen your ability to think in English.
And today, we're breaking down exactly how to do it step by step. So by the end of this episode, you'll have a super practical technique you can use every time you listen to a podcast in English. Why summarizing helps you learn faster.
Okay, first things first. Why is summarizing so powerful?
Great question. When you summarize something, your brain has to do three things. 1, process the information. 2, organize the key points. And 3, express them in your own words. This forces you to think in English rather than just absorbing information passively.
Right, and it also helps you remember what you learned. Studies show that when you actively recall information, like summarizing, it sticks in your memory much longer than just listening once.
Exactly. Plus, it helps with speaking fluency. The more you practice summarizing ideas in your own words, the easier it becomes to explain things naturally in conversations. Step 1. Listen with a purpose.
Now, before you can summarize, you need to actually understand what the podcast is saying, right? So the first step is to listen with a purpose.
That means don't just play a podcast in the background while you scroll on your phone. Actually pay attention. Before you press play, ask yourself, what do I want to learn from this episode? Is it new vocabulary? Is it a specific topic?
Yes, and here's a great tip. Take brief notes while listening. You don't need to write down every word, just jot down key points or words that stand out.
For example, if the podcast is about how to build confidence in English, you might write down 1, speak daily, 2, embrace mistakes, 3, use positive self-talk. Step 2, identify the key points.
Now that you've listened actively, the next step is to identify the most important points. A good summary doesn't include everything, just the main ideas.
Right. Ask yourself, what are the 2 to 3 biggest takeaways from this episode? If you had to explain it to a friend in just a few sentences, what would you say?
And don't stress about getting every detail right. The goal is to capture the essence of the episode, not to repeat it word for word. Step 3, summarize in your own words.
All right, now here's the fun part. Put it into your own words.
This is where your brain really gets a workout. Instead of copying what the podcast said, try to explain it as if you're teaching someone who didn't listen to the episode.
Exactly. And a great trick is to imagine you're explaining it to a 12-year-old. This forces you to keep your summary clear and simple.
For example, let's say the podcast was about how to stay motivated in English learning. Instead of just repeating what the host said, your summary might be, the episode explained that motivation comes from having fun with English, setting small goals and making English a daily habit, like watching short videos or speaking for just 5 minutes a day.
Step 4. Speak your summary out loud. Okay, now here's the secret weapon for fluency. Don't just write your summary, say it out loud.
Yes, this helps you practice thinking in English while improving your speaking skills at the same time.
And if you want to go a step further, record yourself and listen back. You'll hear what sounds natural, what you need to improve, and over time, this will make your spoken English smoother and more confident.
Final takeaway and listener challenge.
All right, before we wrap up, let's quickly go over what we learned today.
We talked about why summarizing is a powerful fluency tool. It forces your brain to process English actively, helps you think in English, and improves your speaking skills.
We also broke it down into 4 simple steps. 1, listen with a purpose. 2, identify the key points. 3, summarize in your own words. And 4, say it out loud.
And now it's your turn. Here's today's listener challenge. Challenge, summarize this episode. 1, pick one key takeaway from today's episode.
Summarize it in 2 to 3 sentences using your own words.
3, say it out loud or even better, record yourself.
Drop your summary in the comments or share it with a language partner. Remember, fluency isn't about memorizing, it's about training your brain to process and use English naturally. Summarizing is one of the best ways to build that skill.
Yes, So go ahead, try the challenge, and let us know how it goes. We'd love to see your summaries.
And if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review. Your support helps us create even more useful content for English learners like you.
Thanks for listening, and remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. Keep practicing, and we'll see you in the next episode.